but only because it made sense to have 6 in the box.
Packaging,
so I don't know whether they used a 6th one just to package the other 5. But yeah, it just worked out really weird to have that combination of like ordering 5 and 6 turn up.
Yeah, I mean, what do you use to package polystyrene?
Bubble wrap.
Yeah, there'll be a laugh. Hi, folks.
Yeah, we've sort of done our usual slide straight into random bits of background conversation.
Yeah. Get people wondering what we might be talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
hi, Heidi.
Hello.
Packaging polystyrene with polystyrene. Where else do you go from there?
Yeah, would you say?
I'd imagine packaging is a bit of a nightmare for you, though, Heidi, with some of the.
Yeah, I've gotten better at it. With pottery, you want to make sure nothing's touching. Pottery is touching each other, and so I definitely reuse Amazon boxes like it's my job. So like we have this whole stash of just boxes and boxes and boxes, and then I cut them apart and roll the pottery in the sleeve of bubble wrap and then a sleeve of cardboard and then pop it into the box. And fortunately lately haven't had too many losses. A couple handles get jostled a bit, but nothing I can't replace. I know the maker.
That's true. Yeah, we got some of the Amazon boxes. That box of polystyrene stuff turned up. It was a rectangular box stuffed into a bag. Yeah.
So Amazon go onto paper bags, have they? Wow.
For some stuff, yeah.
That's interesting. Haven't seen that.
Is that one of the insulated bags, like that has the plastic and the?
No, literally just.
It's just
thick
a plastic
brown paper.
Yeah. Ooh.
With a sticky back on it, yeah.
Trying to improve the eco-ness.
I mean, they could have just put the
label on the
box,
on
the box itself, unless they wanted it to be inconspicuous.
True. I mean, it wasn't anything untoward. It wasn't anything that,
Yes.
shouldn't be seen by
street packaging.
No special beads or anything.
Yes, exactly. Nothing that required lube.
I found actually sometimes like organising craft stuff. My wife and I were talking yesterday about our conservatory, which at the moment is just a complete dumping ground. And she was suggesting that maybe it might be quite a good idea to think about maybe turning it into somewhere where I can do craft. Because most of the time the tinkerage is A, being off limits for winter anyway. B, is always a complete mess. And it's a pain. But it's very difficult to sort of do kind of sort of crafty things here because I'm basically sitting at the dining table. So if I want to do, for example, some bookbinding, I've got to wait till I've got enough time to get stuff out. Because there's no point sort of trying to do 10 minutes before dinner because the dining table's needed. So it's like I've maybe trying to sort it out. But one of the things I've been using last probably couple of years, particularly with kind of trying to organise projects, is using Amazon boxes to kind of sort of store just things in because they're fairly strong. They're fairly consistent about size. And certainly the stuff we ordered, we tend to get a lot of the ones that are kind of 5 inches tall, 12 inches wide, and sort of 15, 16 inches long. So they're kind of the typical Amazon box. So we get quite a few of those, and they're quite good to kind of go, right, okay, they're big enough that you can get some like an A4 sheet of paper in, or card. So you can kind of go, right, I've got this project box. So I've got one that's, there's one for lino. We did some candle stuff. There's one with candles. There's another one with some clay. And it's just like, right, all the things just fit nicely in there. They're big enough that you can fit a reasonable amount of stuff in for a project. Not too big that take up stupid amounts of space. Stack nicely, fairly strong. It's quite like kind of. I found it as a cheap way to organise kind of craft stuff and projects.
Yep, they are ridiculously useful for that.
Yeah,
A lot of my crap's still in.
Yeah, I've moved to Tupperware, like big Tupperware bins for my stuff, just because sometimes we'll move it to the garage and it's not exactly friendly for cardboard. Just it gets kind of damp in there, and then you get like that mold on the side of the box or whatever. So, but right
The
now,
type of box where you lift the sides up and the bottom falls out.
Oh right, yeah. Especially if you put like,
heavy stuff in it,
beads and those kind of things. But beside me, I've got like my video electronics box and my printmaking box underneath all of my shelves for my clay, which is nice. I can't wait to get out of this room though. Like speaking of super tiny spaces, like this is I've outgrown it and I cannot wait to expand. It's this year I'm hoping that we were able to do that. So it's like anything else, right? I really put my eye to this and tried to make it grow, and unfortunately it's grown faster than what my space has grown.
Just a bit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have 60 pieces drying right now, and tonight we'll have to throw another 20 to 30. So, and that's the max that I have space to dry on bats right now. So, if I could expand my space a little bit more, I could probably get a lot more productivity out of a weekend. But,
At what point do you start working on cloning yourself?
I tried that with a child, but it seems that they don't grow quite fast enough either.
No, a lot of work. You need something that just hits the ground running, I think.
Yeah. But it's expensive and
true.
Yeah, you can't speed it up by putting fertilizer on their bed either. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't know that I would get along with myself well enough either.
It's surprising. Yeah, I can't imagine there would be many people who would actually get on well with themselves as clones.
So, are you hoping to expand at home, or are you thinking of maybe trying to get a shop somewhere?
I think step one is expanding at home, just to keep the costs low, because any property around Pittsburgh, whether you're renting or you're buying, it's going to be a lot more than what I'm bringing in economically. And since I'm still working full time, trying to upkeep another space and be able to get there. My commute right now, I'm working 3 days of the week in the office, and my commute right now is an hour one way. So I'm losing 2 hours a day. By the time I get home, it's like maybe I can handle some mugs or, do a little bit of throwing. But for the most part, like the only days that I'm productive in my studio are Mondays and Fridays. And then, of course, like the weekends are super solid, like packed. Red's asking how I can be so productive with a child, a husband, and a house to take care of. Well, I'm not that good at the housework.
I can say there's a point where you have to train the child to do the housework instead.
He tries, but sometimes he makes more of a mess than
Heidi,
help.
I'm exactly the same.
They do reach an age where they can be fairly responsible and left to actually do things if trained well.
Mid-30s maybe.
Yeah, he's been really wanting to. He's like, he learned this concept of like getting paid for chores. Which getting paid for him is like we get him a Kinder Egg or something, like nothing too crazy. But like he really likes dusting, so we have plenty of that opportunity for him. He likes trying to sweep. What's that?
You can come right here. We hate dusting in this house.
Yeah. Well,
They invented compressors for.
There's plenty of dust in this house because we've got a potter and a woodworker. So, you know, we track it all. We track it all everywhere. I don't like
You're trying to
have
get him
dust
interested
the house.
in non-dirty, non-dusty hobbies and stuff now. Then
He wants to do. He really likes hip hop, so he really wants to learn how to dance. So I think,
Fantastic.
in a house full of pottery, that might not work so well.
everything just bouncing up and down. You just got to make sure Ben makes everything, all the racks, nice and solid.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't get into like crisscross, jumping around. Like,
Yeah, don't put any House of Pain on.
yeah, I think I just dated myself.
Andy's still wondering when he's going to be getting his hip up.
Yeah, I can do with hip hop. Yeah, possibly even 2. I really should talk to my doctor about that.
11 minutes in, it's
Knee
already
op as well, if
insulting.
possible. Yeah.
Jamie, did you get
in?
into anything today for your birthday? Cake? Anything?
My daughter has made a cake, although I haven't actually had any of it yet because it was it didn't quite go to her plan. So that might be a finish off tomorrow type of project. She's been doing it from scratch, so
Okay.
she's gone the whole hog with like marzipan filigree around the top and all sorts of stuff.
Ooh,
Fancy.
Yeah.
fancy. I might get a cupcake for somebody for their birthday, but I'm no baker. I tried to make bread for the first time in a bread machine the other day, and it came out like a brick. So, yeah, I'm good with pottery. I'll just stick to that.
We had a bread machine for a while.
Yeah.
And
They make good bricks.
It always came out. It came out like bricks all the time. It doesn't help that we're gluten free here. We 3 out of the 4 of us are severely gluten intolerant. So it just comes out. It came out with bricks even before all of us, or 3 of us, were sort of diagnosed or suffering the kind of regular wheat. It came out brick-like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've heard of people
Every time
being
I've used
successful
mine,
with bread makers, but it wasn't us.
I don't think you can follow the recipe in the instructions and it come out like bread. I think those instructions are just brick factories.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, like, I didn't have all of the ingredients to make like traditional white bread, so I made French bread, which is like 3 ingredients. It's water, flour, and water, flour, and sugar. So I think I also didn't have the right measuring cups, so I was like guesstimating, and I overguesstimated, I guess. I think, and
or
also
under.
everything that I've read is like you need to put a little extra water in when you're using the, even though the recipe may call for a certain amount of water, you use a little bit more water and a little less flour, and it'll come out a little fluffier. So we'll try that again this week. I have, I did order some, some baking supplies to come in the groceries this week. So we'll see if it gets any better. But if not, it's just whatever.
I think the last time I used mine, I put a load of habaneros, like shredded habaneros in the dough. That was amazing with some cream cheese. It was very dense, very hot, spicy bread.
Sounds like it. Yeah,
It was a great deterrent for my housemates at the time.
My sister-in-law has been making jalapeno bread, and she took a picture and sent it to me today. She's like, "Ha ha ha." Perfect.
You have like food competition with your sister then?
Not really. She was making bread, and I was like, "Oh, that looks like fun. I like bread." And then I'm the type of person, if I'm not good at something right out the bat, I'm just like, "Yeah, I'm not doing this."
Yeah, you can buy it in the shop. Why would I want to make it if I can't
Yeah.
make it right first time? Yeah.
Yeah. But I also really love the smell of fresh baked bread.
Yeah.
It's one of those triggering things that like takes me back to my childhood, because my grandmother, like, every weekend she would have like fresh baked bread every Sunday. So when we go there for dinner, was like her whole house smelled of this like just super fresh warm bread, and Yeah.
Do you get that in supermarkets in the States? Because in the UK, supermarkets that kind of bake their own bread will pipe the kind of the smell of the bread to the front of the store. So as you walk in, you can get this sort of smell of baking bread.
Not in our grocery store. I don't think they spent that kind of money. I think it's an old warehouse they turned into a grocery store.
I can well believe that.
My wife had a for Christmas, one of her presents was a recipe book, and I do most of the cooking, but on a Saturday she likes to kind of cook dinner because it gives her something to do, and it gives me a break from cooking dinner for the rest of the week. And because she had this it was I think Mediterranean recipe book at Christmas with lots of really nice. She loves Mediterranean food, the kind of the bright colours and lots of fresh ingredients. So she decided that she would start a competition with her sister on a Saturday. She cooks dinner, and she'll sort of take it. She doesn't do Instagram, but it's almost like, I'm going to take an Instagram picture. I'm then going to send it to my sister and say, "Oh, this is what I cooked today." And it's kind of like her sister. I don't think her sister knows that she's actually in a competition, because occasionally she'll send pictures saying, "Oh, I made this today." It's like, "Oh yeah, the fact you made something." So my wife's kind of sort of keeping track and knowing that she's ahead by kind of how many weeks. And so it's setting things off. And it's just like, it's great because we get some cracking, because obviously you've got to do a different thing every week.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been getting some interesting meals on a Saturday.
Yeah,
because the regular dinners just tend to be the same kind of dozen or so, just sort of cycled around.
Right. Yeah, I'm not too bad when it comes to like cooking a meal in a saucepan or a skillet, right? Like I'm pretty good at blending different flavors together and loosely following recipes. But I've tried baking because I think I should be good at it, and every time I try it, I get severely disappointed with myself.
Well, that baking is definitely a dark art, though, isn't it? It's more of a chemistry experiment than
science.
Cooking.
Yeah, and you'd think with all the science I do in my studio, I would. But I also like to try and break the rules with pottery too, and I find myself sorely disappointed at times. Why'd that explode?
So we're quite lucky with the baking. My kids got into baking quite young, and so they will regularly kind of go, "Oh, can I make a cake?" "Yeah, go ahead."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they'll literally. I mean, it's like, we had a new oven, a new stove, whole cooker. Kind of fitted last week, so it's only our first full week of having it in action, and I think we've had 3 lots of cake so far this week, which is not great for the waistline, but it's just like, I'll tell you what, having a new stove, a new oven, really does make a difference to kind of how well things cook, because our old cooker didn't always cook things in the middle that should have been cooked in the middle. And it's like it was gas, we've gone for replacements electric. It's like the baking thing's just so much nicer. So
it's much more reliable, huh?
Yeah.
Although mine isn't. It's got the it's an old one we got secondhand years ago, but there's a problem with the switch panel, like assembly. So when you like switch it to oven, then you set the temperature. It's got like a digital button thing, and then if you walk past it and there's like enough of a breeze, it resets itself back down to 160. So you're like halfway through making something, and you've like wandered through for something else, and then it's not always good.
We're making everyone hungry in the chat.
Oh, they're talking about bread and stuff. Steve's teaching people how to make bread on a stick.
Mm-hmm. But he has to eat gluten free too, doesn't he? Steve?
Yeah, he's weird as well.
Yes. Yeah,
he's weird as well.
The with this new oven we've got, it's like our old one we'd had it for quite a long time, and probably wasn't very well sealed in terms of letting heat out and things. So the new one's much more efficient because it's much better sealing. It's like when I was reading through the instruction book, it said, be careful when opening the doors because you might get a kind of a big bloom of steam coming out when you open the door. And like the old one, if you were directly above the door, you get a kind of blast of heat. But if you opened it, it'd be fine. It's like the new one. It's like the first time I opened it, the sort of oven door, it was just like I thought it'd been sort of something from Raiders of the Lost Ark when they kind of the ark gets opened.
You're like, oh.
Have you seen those witchcraft ovens that you can open the door and the heat doesn't come out of them? They've got some kind of like, they've got this like recirculating, like a door warm air curtain. You get like
for a stall. Yeah.
They have the same kind of thing in the oven, so it's like right above the front, so you can open the door, and like you can fold the door away, and it like recirculates the air back inside the oven. Absolute witchcraft.
Yeah.
I mean, they call it engineering, but it's witchcraft.
Or physics. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I really like one of those kind of the ones you get on Great British Bake Off, where you kind of open the door and then you can slide it in, so you can actually get right close to the oven.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, that'd be nice.
But then
I have
you
very
need that
short
warm
arms.
shelf to put your stuff on.
Like trying to get into the oven. Like, the best is when we make like pizza bread, like pepperoni bread, and I put 2 different pans in. So like I slide the one all the way in the back, slide the other one in, slide the third one in, and then I try to pull them out, and then the far one gets stuck in the back. I always have to get Ben to help me. This is just like, this is pointless to try.
See it like a pizza peel with a 6-foot pole on it.
Yes. You'd think, with a woodworker in the house, he would make me one. But
give him a shot.
Hopefully he'll be listening, and your next birthday present or significant event present will be a homemade pizza peel.
There you go.
Or just next weekend, because why not?
Yeah. He made my brother one for Christmas. It turned out really nice, and my brother's like, I don't have my pizza oven yet. And I was like, I was working ahead for you.
Well, hurry up and
It's
get
just a
one.
serving platter with a long handle.
Yeah, I guess it's just like serving platters, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
pretty much.
It's a really long pole with a serving
I've done that with ours before, because ours is metal. Could be alley, could be stainless. I don't know. Metal on a stick with a bit of wood on the back. But I've done that before where I can't be bothered to try and find a plate to put the pizza on, and I've just cut it on the thing and then just taken it in and used that. Just kind of held it by the handle so it doesn't burn my legs while I'm waiting to eat it.
How's the pizza?
Yeah. It's become a
Like
plate with a handle.
spoon, yeah. You try and put it in your mouth.
The best thing that happened to me though with short arms in the pottery studio is that I have this kiln called Big Bertha, and she's like super round and super tall, and I could not reach the bottom of the kiln, and so I always had to get Ben to come help me. And so one day he wasn't home, and I thought, I'll just get a step stool and I'll like lean myself over the edge and start pulling pots out. And the shelves, I don't know how aware you are about the shelves, but they're half shelves, and they're like 18 inches wide and about 10 inches deep, and they're super heavy because they're just like solid. And so I'm leaning myself over the edge and trying to like leverage my body while I'm trying to like lift this shelf up, and it wasn't working. But fortunately I didn't fall in, so that was good.
Just a pair of feet sticking out the back.
Right. So I'm like, how do I do this? So I ended up leaving it, but then I was talking to a couple of my Potter friends, and the one lady was like, yeah, that ain't nothing. I used to work in a public studio, and it was my job to clean out the kiln after there was like a mess from a bisque explosion. Like, sometimes when you put pottery in the kiln and you heat it too quickly, the water tries to push out between the molecules of the clay, and it just disintegrates, and you got clay or particles everywhere, and it basically just makes this dusty mess on the inside of the kiln, and you have to vacuum it out. So she's in the studio by herself. She's about an inch shorter than me. I'm 5'2", so she's about 5'1", 5 foot. And she's got one of those massive kilns as well. Except it's also, not only is it tall, but it's also on a platform. So she gets this like 3-step ladder and gets herself all situated. She's like vacuuming it out, but she, again, also like me, has to pull out the shelf, except they used full-size shelves. So what would have been like 15 pounds was now 30 pounds that she's trying to leverage herself and get it out of the kiln. Unfortunately, she does fall forward into the kiln with her legs sticking out the back and has no way of contorting her body because she's a bit busty of a woman too. And so she can't get herself maneuvered. And so she was stuck in the kiln for a few hours waiting. And unfortunately, the janitorial staff found her and was able to help her out of the kiln. She didn't break anything in the kiln, didn't break herself, except for having like brush burns on her elbows. But she was very, very embarrassed. And the staff there was like, you're not going to be doing this by yourself anymore. And she was like, I don't think I would do it by myself. But after she told me that story, I was like, I'm not going to try and be a hero. I'll just wait for Ben to get home, and then he can help me.
Yeah, much more sensible.
Yeah. Oh, the fun things we get into as potters.
You sort of almost want like a door on the front to be able to walk into it, I suppose.
The gas kilns have that. I don't know why electric kilns. I'm assuming just because of the coiling. The electric kilns are built that way. But the new Raku kiln that I have, there's a winch system, and you crank it, and it lifts the entire outside canister up, so then it exposes all the shelves. And
yeah,
that's clever.
Yeah, so it's I can't wait to use it. I'm really excited. But what that does is it helps you, it helps keep all of the heat within the body of the kiln, so that you lift it up, you've got your pieces exposed, all the shelves exposed, and you can take one off at a time and then restack, and then you've still got kind of this air pocket of heat that's still in there. Put it back down over so you don't lose too much of your temperature. And then each successive firing during that period of time just goes quicker.
And more efficient as well, I suppose, from a fuel perspective as well.
Yeah. So I originally was going to build my own out of an old normal kiln that I had, like this small little Olympic kiln. But again, it would have been that challenge of like trying to work down into the kiln and pull the pieces out, then pull the shelves out independently, because you still do stack the pottery on top of itself. And I was just like, yeah, that's dangerous. That's dangerous.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. The risk of getting trapped in something, not generally not good.
No. And at that temperature, no thanks.
So you actually, I mean, I don't know a huge amount about pottery, I have to admit. But I kind of thought that you kind of heated it up. You stack your stuff, heat it up, and then let it cool down before you kind of open it up. But do you actually kind of open it while it's still hot?
It depends on what process you're doing. So for like normal, what I do, like the electric firings, where it's, you load your greenware in. So your greenware is going to be your dried clay.
Yep.
That hasn't been fired yet. You're going to put that in the kiln. You're going to fire it to like 1800 degrees to get your bisque. And it'll turn it pink. And it gets like you tap on it, it's like ting, 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 ting. It had, the molecules are all open enough so that when you put the glaze on, they just absorb the water. And when they absorb the water, they're pulling all of the minerals and everything into the clay body itself. That creates the fusion that happens when it heats up. So the second firing, you fire the full temperature, which is over 2000 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you let it cool, and you want it to be down around no more than 300 degrees before you open it. Most people try and let it cool down to under 100 degrees. And then you unload it. The biggest thing is you're trying not to induce some thermal shock into your pieces.
Of course.
Yeah.
So if you watch the great what is it, the Pottery throwdown, and how often they lose pieces, it's usually because they're trying to speed dry, speed fire everything to fit it into like a television episode, right? And so there's a lot more loss. And with pottery, it's all a practice of patience. So what I do is my stuff will sit for like 2 weeks, then I'll fire it. I'll fire it at a slow temperature for the first time, which is about 10 to 12 hours of a firing cycle for the first round. And then it's about a 6 to 8 hour firing for the glaze fire. With raku, which I was describing, that hood coming up and on the crank and everything, that's a lot different. You're introducing a lot of opportunities for thermal shock, because you're bisque firing at a much lower temperature, so that when you do fire at the raku temperature, your pieces are a lot more brittle, but they're absorbing the raku materials a lot better, and they'll absorb that carbon a lot better, so you get that really rich black. The only problem with that is, number one, if you're using a clay that is very sensitive to thermal shock, you get cracking and sometimes, popping and breaking and explosions in your kiln. But then the other thing is that if you're using like a mid-fire clay, like I do, that clay is never fully vitrified. So, and Andy knows that term, right? Vitrification just basically means that the clay has hardened to a point where moisture can no longer build up in between the molecules of the clay. It's so solid that water can't pass through or pass into the material. It's fully vitrified, so it's like more solid than a stone. And the results with raku is that it never reaches vitrification. So if you have a raku pot, you can't put water in it. It'll eventually, the water will seep through, and you'll end up with mold build up internally within the vessel or underneath the vessel where you've sat it. Maybe you'll destroy, your piece of furniture that you have it sitting on. So it's a purely decorative form.
Yeah.
So I typically will use the same clay that I normally throw for pottery, like for functional pottery. I'll use that same material for raku, but it's a lot of fun. There's pit firing too, which is really cool, where you just dig a hole, you like throw a bunch of combustibles in there, set it on fire for like a full day, and put all your pots in there.
I think I remember seeing that on one of your videos, or maybe an Instagram video or something.
Yeah, possibly.
You've done some of that, and it you kind of can put extra things in that will maybe create interesting effects.
Yeah.
On the pottery when it comes out,
Mm-hmm.
and there's kind of an element of, well, it might do this or it might not, and we'll see when it comes out.
Yeah. There's like there are really interesting recipes that you can come up with by doing a technique called sagat. So you basically take your
Isn't
vessel.
he a character in Street Fighter?
Maybe. You take tin foil and you fill the tin foil with salt and banana peels and feathers and all kinds of different things that are going to give off a different color of smoke or a different release of material into the clay. And then you wrap everything around the vessel, and then you put that in your pit fire and you burn it off, and then you peel back all that residue carbon, and you end up with a really beautiful piece. There are a couple of potters online that do that. They do it with porcelain, so they just have with raku, they call it naked raku, where it's plain porcelain. They don't do anything to it except add some burnishing or add some different materials to the surface to get like these really cool effects. And then anywhere that you don't have a resist, it's gonna turn pitch black. Anywhere that you have a resist, it might change color, where it might be purple or different shades of all different colors. With the Sagat firing, it's very similar, where instead of taking out of the heat and then putting it into the combustibles, you just have it within the combustible the entire time, and it's usually like a 24-hour period of continuous firing, and you're just like you're throwing all kinds of stuff over top of it, wood, leaves, just keeping it
It must
going.
be a really sort of interesting thing to do, knowing that it's going to be a really unpredictable result.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why it's so exciting when if what you're doing is on a production schedule. So like what I do, every weekend I'm throwing the same form. I might throw 60 of the same form. So then that goes into the kiln and it gets maybe 4 different glazes applied to it. So what I try and do is have like one exciting piece that I'm trying a technique I've never done before, just to keep it fun. But I have potter friends that don't even do production. They just go straight into those more fine art and technical challenges where, they'll sculpt these beautiful, immaculate pieces, and you're like, oh God, you're just gonna throw that in the pit fire? Like, it's so gorgeous. Like, ooh. And then they do, and then like sometimes it comes out and you're just like, now I get it. I get why you did it. And then other times you're like, I'm sorry. There's
Dremel the surface off.
There's a potter named Shane Greco, and he does a lot of octopus and animal sculptures. He puts a lot of animals on the sides of his vessels, and I was really drawn to his work because it was something that I also was doing before I saw his work. Like I made an octopus vessel for John. I think he's in the chat. A couple of years ago, an octopus mug, cool. And it really it lit a fire. And then somebody sent me Shane's Instagram, was like, hey, did you know about this dude? Because I think you'd really like his work. And John's like, predictably, I'm aware of him. Of course you are. But he does a lot of experimental firing with his massive pieces. Like the one day I was looking at his Instagram and he made this super tall vase, but not only was it a super tall vase, but he attached this ginormous seahorse to the side of it. Just nice. Friggin' gorgeous. And I'm like, how the heck is he gonna fire that? It is massive. How is he gonna fire it? He took 2 kilns and put them on top of each other. So what he did, he like loaded the he needed a partner to do this. So him and his studio buddy lifted the vessel, put it into the bottom of the first kiln. Then they go and they picked up the second kiln that didn't have a bottom ring, just was like the body without the lid, put that on top of the vessel. So then there was like a little bit more. So then he grabbed another layer of kiln and put it on top and then put the lid on. And I was like, there's no way that's going to fire evenly. Yeah,
I was going to say that trying to get that to be even and consistent.
But
you'd almost want circulation of air to kind of equalize it or something, maybe.
Yeah, it ended up working. And I was just like, holy hell, I can't believe he did it. But it came out amazing. His projects right now are he's making animal sculpture fence posts, like toppers. So they're like massive, different animal heads. And the most impressive ones have been like, he did this black rhino. It was gorgeous. He has a giraffe head, but he's definitely an amazing follow. Nice. Looks like someone's asking, Jan is asking if I know Florian Gadsby. Yes. So he is a professional potter out of England that fires a gas kiln, and he throws his pieces super ridiculously thin, and he's methodical with his process. He's very fun to watch. He puts out a video about once a week on YouTube as well. And
he's got a big following too.
He sure does.
600,000.
He sure does. There's another potter that there's some controversy around him because he was people think that he's a sexual predator based on some of his treatment of his studio mates, but he goes by the name Tortoise Copenhagen, and he throws some really interesting shapes, and it's like really amazing to watch his technique. It's just, you know, these people they put the hours in, and they definitely are masters at what they do. It's just absolutely blown away at some of the techniques they can do. And it's like they'll force something to fail so that they can see if they can recover it, you know? I'm not there yet. I flop all the time. Like, ugh. I don't know if you saw, I like put a video out, or like a short video on my Instagram of a bunch of flops that happened all in one day. I don't tend to flop a whole lot because I'm throwing the same vessel all the time. But when I do start playing around with new shapes, I'm just like, knock it over.
It's surprising how much you can learn from doing that sort of thing, though. You know, you can sort of stave off the kind of demoralization from it. You can generally pick a lot of good nuggets of knowledge out.
Yeah, it was definitely a when I started, I was blown away anytime that I would be able to just get like something that resembled a bowl.
It's round, I can put stuff in it, it's close enough.
I'm like, oh man, it's better than a salt cellar. and those things they're like so precious, you know, the first time that you get something that resembles a cup or something that resembles a bowl. And you know, thinking about it, it's just a wheel that you're fighting centrifugal force. And a lot of times what happens is like it's trying to go out like this. The taller you get it, it's the whole it's just trying to fan out. It's just spinning and like so so you really have to like know how to control the speed, know how to deal with the weight of the vessel, and just take your time and don't get excited that, you know, you want something to drink out of the first 5 times you throw, you know. It's just if you can take, like, a lot of people ask me, how hard is it to get into this? Well, it's not hard to try. It's hard to stay committed.
Yeah. To get good enough to want to keep going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's the little wins, right? It's like, oh, I got it. I got the vessel taller than, you know, 6 inches. Holy cow, it's the biggest thing I've ever made. I'm putting it on my shelf. I'm not doing anything else to it. I'm afraid to even fire it. Like, you know, that first, like, I did it. And then as you progress and you're able to repeat that like 20 times, then it's like not as impressive. You're just like, yeah, I did. I ain't nothing.
Well, so in terms of what you're saying there about how they kind of try and splay out and things, do you get to a point where you might start trying to make a mug and then it goes wrong, so you just speed the wheel up and turn it into a bowl? You know, is that kind of like the next shape down kind of thing?
Well, I mean, so as much as you want to sketch in the rounds where you just let the clay do what it wants, right? You kind of have to have a plan of what you're going to make to begin with, because it all depends on the base. So if you're going to throw a bowl, you need a wider base, a wider foot than you are if you're going to make a mug, or you're going to make a cup, or a tumbler, as they call it. So correcting something that was originally only 3 inches wide, that was a tumbler, and then trying to make that into a bowl, you could do it, but it takes a lot more control than maybe the time it's worth trying to do that. You're almost better off just like
smash
saying,
back in.
all right, I'll start over again. Because by the time you fight it to try and get it to make it into something else, you could have made 2 more of the thing that you were trying to make before. And that's like you were saying before, like that's just the compounded interest of learning, right? It's the more times I fail, the more times I'm going to be successful because of those failures.
Yeah.
Because I know I can feel things when I'm about to lose control, like controlling the speed of your wheel, controlling the speed of your movement. There's a thing that some potters try and complete a vessel within 3 pulls, right? So they wedge their clay off the wheel, and then they center on the wheel. They do a cone up, cone down, and then they make their first move, which is to create their hole, and then they do a pull up, and they're done. That is someone that has made the same form hundreds and hundreds of times. That's someone that understands the dynamics of their clay. It's a material that they've worked with hours and hours and hours, and it's something that's just like innate at that point. You can be watching television and do it, right?
Yeah.
So
muscle memory sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And anytime that you start a new shape, you're not going to be able to do it in 3 pulls, because you've got to figure out, like, at what point do I move the clay here? At what point do I pull the clay out? At what point, do I start stretching? And when do I start pulling the neck back in? Those kind of things. So, watching some of these people like Florian Gatsby or Taurus Copenhagen or, Shane Greco throwing their things, it's like, it really, you have to take into consideration the amount of time that they've put into it before you start reflecting on yourself and going, why can't I do it in 3 pulls? Yeah. John says that's like blacksmiths trying to complete a certain piece in the fewest heats, right? Yeah. That's production mindset. Like, don't waste the energy. Don't waste material. Don't waste the energy. Get it done as quickly as possible so you can move on to the next piece.
But it's that level of expertise isn't a word I like. I talked about that.
It's comfort with the material and comfort with the process.
But that once you become familiar enough with something, whatever that is, whether it's a particular process, particular material, a particular skill, it can look effortless to somebody else. But it's only effortless because of those hundreds of hours of practice at it.
Yeah.
Where you kind of you make it look easy because you've spent. I had that a few times when I had student teachers when I was teaching, and you'd get somebody come in and you kind of they'd observe a class, and they would kind of you discuss it afterwards, and they'd say you made that look so easy. You got them eating out of your hand, so to speak. And said, but I've been doing this for I've had thousands of classes now. This is after I didn't start out like this. I wasn't that good at teaching when I first started, but I've made the mistakes. I've learnt. I've adjusted. I've taken those new steps. And I think that's one of the kind of, it's almost like comparisonitis we get with kind of social media, isn't it? But you can get it for a task where you kind of go, I've been trying now for a week and I can't get this, when somebody else is like, but I've been doing this for 30 years. Yeah, exactly.
There's I know there's times when you like look at what a video of yourself, or you look at something that you've made like 10 years ago, and you can tear it apart. You can crucify yourself over, like, I can't believe I sold that. I can't believe I showed that to anyone. I can't believe it. But like, remembering that moment at the age you were, or at the state you were at that time, and going, actually, I wasn't so bad for, first year of teaching, or first year of podcasting, or first year of, whatever it is. And it's really perspective, right? Like I kept a lot of my first year pieces just so, and I have them displayed. Like, so if anybody comes over and they're like, hey, I want to try the wheel, and they throw something and it's really, sloppy, and they're like, oh, it could be an ashtray, and you're like, no, it looks better than mine, and you pull it out and you're like, this was the result of my first couple of times throwing. And I mean, I'm sure John could probably do that with the first time he made a bottle opener, right? So, or Jamie Page, the first piece that he worked on, a scroll saw, right? Like, some people come out of the womb being able to do it. Most people don't.
Yeah,
that's few and far between.
Although, Jamie, you've always been an expert in technology. You're like savant when you were a kid, right?
I think it's interesting. Kind of, you mentioned the different practices, different types of things. And I was been thinking now while we were talking about sort of pottery, how it's an art. It's in terms of your producing a form. It's also kind of an art in terms of you can attempt this firing and this may or may not happen, or you've got an element of almost surprise to it, and you kind of go, well, yeah, the last time I mixed these two materials in this firing technique, it came out with this effect, and hopefully I'll get that same thing or something similar again. So there's kind of that art to it, because there's a whole lot of science as well, and very complicated science. But I'm thinking about kind of the first stage. I mean, I'd like in a minute to talk about kind of how you got into it, but thinking like with practicing, if you've got this lump of clay and you kind of try and pull it into take a mug on the wheel, and it doesn't work, well, you can just kind of just slap it around a bit, get rid of some of the air, and start again. Whereas there are some other making kind of crafts where once you commit to making a change to that material, you're going to have to start completely fresh with a completely new piece.
Glass blowing.
If you start cutting leather or a piece of wood, that's it. Or glass blowing, once you start, if it goes wrong in some way, or you want to try again, you literally have to get a new piece.
I suppose that's where you've got things like glass blowing and metalwork. You can recover those or reuse that material. Whereas it's a bit more difficult with something like leather or wood or something.
Yeah, a replenishable.
Yeah, I guess with wood you can get smaller, can't you? You could kind of.
Well, that was just what I said before.
Or leather. This belt didn't work, so I'm gonna make a watch strap.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the old adage that knife makers don't fail; they just make smaller knives. I've just been digging around trying to. There's a fantastic story that I read a couple of years ago. I've just been trying to find it now, but it was about a Zen artist who was kind of famous for doing these like single line paintings. I'd been approached by some super rich person to do who loved cats and wanted a painting of a cat by this particular Zen artist. And so come back and it'll be ready in 3 months' time. Sort of 3 months down the line, he went and visited. He said, no, it's not ready yet. Another 3 months' time. And this went on and on and on for months and months and months and months. And the guy was getting really frustrated, and he turned up, super angry at this guy's house. He's like, I'm giving you a load of money. I just want, you're famous for doing this. I just want a picture of a cat. And the guy just said, okay, walked over to his canvas and just painted single line, just this beautiful, gorgeous picture of this cat in one sweeping movement. I was like, that's amazing. Why have you been delaying it for like over a year, just fobbing me off every time? And then he just kind of quietly wanders over to a cupboard and it opens the door, and canvas after canvas of all these pictures, and then goes to another cupboard, opens that up, and canvas and canvas and canvas. And spent the entire time, it's like every cupboard door he opened, it's just more practice pieces of the same cat over and over and over and over and over. And he'd spent that entire time just practicing to get that one perfect fluid movement to get that painting done. And it was like we were talking before of that kind of effortless thing of, you know, the blacksmith doing it in so many heats, or the potter doing it in the 3 pulls, or things like that. That practiced movement, that muscle memory to kind of do that. And it's just something that's stuck with me for a few years. Of that, not everyone who can do something and make it look effortless is just natural talent. Sometimes it is just practice and hiding your mistakes well enough.
Yeah, and that's Instagram, right? Like, we only post
social media in general. Yeah,
we only post the curated stuff. Where, you know, I really like this trend of showing real time what you're doing.
Yeah,
like for a while we were trying to like fit within the minute. Is remember Instagram at first was like you only have a minute for videos when they opened it up, and then they started doing reels after that. But I remember all of the potters that I knew, we were cropping each session down to a minute of work. So we were speeding it up to like 16 times, and then trimming it in between each fluid movement. So then you got this like crazy, super quick, like, and then it's done. And people are like, why do you charge so much for something that, you know, it looks like it took you 2 seconds to do? So it was an unrealistic thing to share with a process that does take time, especially if you're experimenting and doing different shapes. I like that now there's a move back to real time, you know, how long it takes. And it is very soothing, I guess would be the right word, to watch somebody work in clay. Especially when they're masterful at it, you know, where it's like every move is a grandiose experience, you know, where they're just like, I'm going to move this really quickly for me up and around. And you're just like, how did they tell the clay to do that? What
spell did they cast?
What? Even like I've been doing this on about 5 years now, and some people I'll watch and I'm just like, I just want to be at that level. Like, that is just absolutely amazing. But that's also somebody that probably is now a full-time potter. It's they're committed every single day to their craft, their practice, their, you know, whatever they call it. And I cannot compare myself to that because I work full-time and I fit throwing in where I can. But, you know, it does make me feel good when somebody like crafts with Ellen, who's been in my studio. She's thrown on my pottery wheel. She's been here and done that. When she says, "Oh, I can see your progress," it's like, oh, yes, good, thank you, because I feel like I'm spinning wheels sometimes. Like, I
think that's it, though, isn't it? It's when you're in it, when you're in the trenches doing that, it's very difficult to see your own progress, and sometimes you do need that, you know, kind of gentle nudge from a friend who's kind of watched you do that. You to sort of go, here's one you did 3 years ago. Look properly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that is also what's nice about having this digital diary almost.
Yeah.
Like, to be able to look back and be like, okay, you know, even a year ago, comparatively speaking, I am, you know, crazy amounts better than a year ago. And you forget sometimes to do that for yourself. But
but this is it, isn't it? We're so used to that. We're looking at other people's show reel all the time, and we compare to that show reel, and you see somebody, like you said, you see somebody else, and you go, how on earth did they do that? But of course there are people who will look at your work and go, how on earth did she do that?
Yeah.
Because they're not there yet.
Right.
But we're constantly looking. It's that. I mean, it's almost the. Well, I think it's actually still technically part of the sort of the Dunning-Kruger thing, isn't it? Yeah, you get the Dunning-Kruger is normally associated with people kind of not actually knowing anything but thinking they're experts at it. But you actually get
Teenagers
to another level of it where you kind of go, actually, I know now that I don't really know very much. Yeah, I mean, I spent over 30 years actively studying physics. Now, I'm not a professor of physics. I've not gone into, never did a PhD or anything like that. But it was my daily job was keeping on top of physics, and I enjoyed learning about it. But the thing I used to tell to my students sometimes is that the more I've studied physics, not only I know more, I've become better understanding of the stuff that I teach. Yeah. But the more I study it, the more I realise I don't know, because physics is such a huge thing. And I see the same in other kind of sort of things that I do, other making things. Yeah, you kind of start off and you don't know anything. So you do a bit of reading, or you do a bit of watching some videos, and you kind of learn a few things. You learn some of the terminology, and then you have a go, and you get better at it. But then you kind of get better at seeing what you don't actually know. You see the mistakes. You kind of think, yeah, I'm nowhere near that line on that cut, and you kind of actually get to a point where you kind of go, it's not actually as good as I thought it was. And I'm comparing to that, and it can be tricky.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I think one trap I find myself falling into quite a lot is to look at a handful of people who are doing the same thing that I'm trying to learn about. Seeing each one of them do something above my level, and then thinking that they can all do all of those things. It's that trap then of going, oh, well, now I know nothing because there's 5 different things from 5 different people. And then thinking, well, hang on a minute, any one of those 5 different people could also look at the same videos, including anything I put out, and possibly think the same thing. It's that trap of underselling your own knowledge, which I think we're far too good at generally as humans.
Yeah. Well, the best way that I learn is by failing. Like I think one of the things that when I took physics, everybody that I took it with were like, well, a lot of these rules are theories that just haven't been broken, right? Like a lot of these things that we talk about in physics or even in chemistry and different things, they're rules to a certain point, but then there's the theories that compound into those rules that there's still opportunity to look at things and go, but if I do X, Y, and Z, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a failure because you're trying to break rules. But then there's that one little sweet pocket where you might find a material, or you might find 2 different materials that react in a way that bends those rules. Kind of like the idea that adding salt into water raises the boiling point, right? So when you're talking about glazes interacting with clays and what it creates in the kiln, and when you get into certain systems where you're doing like you're changing the atmosphere in the kiln, say you're doing a wood fire, and it's all about the combustibles in the kiln and what temperature it maintains, and then reducing the oxygen in that space to create the atmosphere that you want, to get a good reduction fire. We tend to lean into what we learn in school, or from the people that came before us, where they're like, you shouldn't do this, but you can. 9 times out of 10, this is going to be your result until you get that one eureka moment, and then you try and repeat that, but you may only be able to repeat that 1/100th of the time. And that's what's exciting to me. I've talked about this before on other podcasts about finding a craft that checks all the boxes for me. So, and I'm sure like everyone in this room and you guys, as makers and tinkerers, what we enjoy the most is taking something apart, figuring out how it works, and putting it back together the way we think it should work, right? Now, it may not be the way the manufacturer intended it to work, but it's how we wanted to make it work. And so we might start with simple things like drawing or coloring, and then you start like doing mixing colors or melting your crayons to see what happens when you melt them, and does it impact the color if you melt the crayon, or just the things that we do to get to a point where we're also introducing experimentation into our artisanship. And then with pottery, it was like, okay, well, I can make something functional. So I started in college. I've told my story before in other places. I started in college as a sculpture major. My medium was clay. I loved carving in plaster. I loved like doing relief carving and then translating that to clay. I liked doing waste wax casting, all of those really fun things. And it really inspired me, but I was very politically active. So I really, really wanted my art to have more meaning than just being a sippy cup for somebody, right? Like I had no interest, none whatsoever, in functional pottery. I didn't know what I know now about what pottery can do as an art form, as a fine art form as well, until like I was in my 30s, right? I thought it was just this thing grandmas do, like I just wasn't interested in it at all. Then I had my son, and we had a kiln in the basement, and my husband was like, I think you need to get an outlet that like you can stick with, because we had started slap stuff together. I was doing printmaking. I tried 3D printing. I was screen printing. I was like, everything that I could try, I was trying, and nothing was fulfilling. It was just kind of like, yeah, I just spent a whole shit ton of money to learn how to do that thing that I'm never going to touch again. I'm sure, like we were talking earlier about Amazon boxes full of craft supplies that, maybe we'll get back to it. I have stuff out on the porch, like that I thought I'd get into jewelry making because I was inspired by somebody in the community. I was like, yeah, shit, I want to do that. I was like doing beadwork. Yeah. But the thing that just kept having me come back to the clay was that it allows me to do all of those things. I can take my 2D work and I can make a stamp with my 3D printer, and I can put that on my piece. I can do collage. I can make jewelry. I can make spoons. I can make mugs. I can make bowls. I can make wall art. I made a trophy. Where is it? Oh, here it is. I made a trophy plate that I didn't get to give anybody a few years ago for the slip and slide. It's a plate of poutine. It says 2020 Cousin Paul cup, and it's like a silverish glaze. It's so dusty right now. Ooh.
Yeah, that was one hell of a cloud of dust that came off.
Yeah. But like, just knowing that I'm only at the surface of it, and Andy was saying this before, like if you find something that allows you to go in any different direction and still have an ocean of area to cover, like I'll never get bored of this. I don't think. I just keep buying more toys for it. Like
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is that the more and more you expand in those things, the more opportunity you'll have to expand into more and more things. That exponential expansion of, fun, and inversely proportional expansion of lack of time.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I particularly like about kind of sort of pottery and ceramics is the possibility for experimentation that is possibly beyond many other craft mediums. Just that ability to one of my relatives, well, it's actually the partner of a relative by marriage, is a ceramic artist. I think that's probably the better term than potter for the work she produces. And she does these sort of amazing pieces where she'll take like a map, and I don't know how it works. I don't know how she does it, but literally the map will become part of the ceramic, but it is then still ceramic. And sort of experimental glazes. I remember having quite a lengthy conversation with her many years ago, talking about where she could get hold of large quantities of iron filings, because she was looking at kind of trying to produce a particular effect.
Yeah, she's probably doing some like iron oxidation or something on her pieces.
I wouldn't know. I'll send you a link to some
I'd
of
love
her
to see
work. It's, I mean, she does gallery work and she does stuff for sort of clients, but it's not production work. I don't think she does. She won't make a mug. But, well, if she does make a mug, it's probably going to have some really strange effect on it, and probably actually kind of have an axe cut in it or something. Yeah, it's definitely kind of art over function.
Yeah. Well,
there's
there's a lot of ceramic artists, ceramicists that really they try and replicate real world items into clay. There's a artist, I can't remember what their name was, but they just did a piece for Ensika where it was basically like all of these found objects. Basically, she chose a bunch of objects that reminded her of her grandfather, and thank you. And then she sculpted them to make them individual items that she could hang on a wall, and made it like a giant wall collage of all of these things, from like a spindle to a wrench to all of these things she sculpted, and it was beautiful, and she kept them all the same color, but just knowing the amount of work that something like that would take is incredible. And she didn't do any kind of glaze effects. Can you imagine, like, now she takes that to the next step and is like, okay, I want to put texture over all of this stuff. Like, what different textures can I do? There's another potter, ceramic artist, I want to say it goes by Bluebird Studios or something, Bluebird Clay. All she does is she hand builds these little birds out of clay, like porcelain, and then she does all different firing techniques. Sometimes she hand builds them with textures from a rolling pin. Sometimes she like texturizes them with carving into them. But like she did 100 of those birds in 1 year, was like her project for the year. And just like you were saying, that once you find a subject, you can push it in all different directions. And she just proved that, like, I can take this simple form and I can do thousands of different experiments. And this project went from being like a 1 year experiment to like being her entire business structure. It's both her art, but she also turned it into like a small business.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I kind of find it when you find something that you can actually click to like that. I think that's almost the sweet spot, isn't it? That's the thing to kind of almost aim for.
Yeah.
Because there's the danger. Is there a danger then that you get trapped in a particular thing? I
mean, is that danger, or is that like?
Well, that I mean, that's a great question itself. Is it? We often talk about kind of sort of niching down into things, and there's that kind of whole idea that if you want to become the best at something, you kind of almost have to narrow what you're working on and going down. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of, if there's an expectation from your audience for a particular thing, do you kind of, whether that audience is your content creation type audience on YouTube or Instagram, or whether it's your client base who kind of go, oh, we want this particular thing, well, we go to that person for that particular thing.
Yeah.
Is it dangerous that you could become trapped in something that over time you
get bored,
become bored of it? Or is it that thing where actually, no, this is the thing that I want to spend the rest of my life doing, and I just want to get better and better and better, like the artist with drawing a year's worth of one-line cats? It's just a personality thing. Does it matter? Some people it is, and some people it isn't.
Some people like the assembly line, right? So some people are like, I don't need to push myself beyond this. This completes me. I'm good. There's a friend of mine that's also a potter. I'm obsessed. Put that out there. I'm obsessed with clay.
That's fine.
So his thing was like, he'd been working in porcelain for about 20 years. And one day he was just like, tells his online audience, for the next 6 months, I'm not touching porcelain. I'm gonna work in stoneware. He was like, I'm done with porcelain. It's a fickle bitch. Like porcelain is one of the most difficult clays to work with, just because it's very elastic, but it has a very strong memory. So unlike, I use stoneware that has heavy grog in it. I can just abuse the hell out of a pot on the wheel, and it doesn't remember. It's just like, oh, you want me to be this now? Okay, I'll stay like that. Porcelain will, if you've pushed it too far one way or another, it will remember your abuse, and when you fire it, it will show that area of, it will suddenly have like this floppy side, or it will have like these bubbles, or it will have like just these wobbles in it, and it's meant to be thrown thin, and it's very fickle. There's like no other real term to it. It's just very fickle, and people that are experts at throwing it, people that are experts at hand building with it, are probably among the most patient people in the craft.
I was going to say, it does sound like it's one of those that needs patience.
Yeah. It even, like, when you touch it, it has such a different feel than other clays. It's just really interesting. If you ever get a chance to touch like pure porcelain in its raw state, it's like chalky, but so smooth and very it feels dry, but it's not dry. It's very, very strange. It's a very, very strange medium. I tried throwing with it. I wanted to make a piece for Jake, and it what I did, so you can stain porcelain with mason stains, and a little goes a long way. We'll just let's say that mason stains, a little goes a long way. So like an ounce will turn your hands red or blue, or whatever color you choose. So the mason stains, what I did was I took pure porcelain, stained that porcelain with blue. Then I took another porcelain, stained it with red, and then I used white because Jake is a former military. He was a guard at the time. So this is Northside Custom Crafts, if you guys
Jake
don't
Thompson.
know who I'm talking about. He just an incredible guy, incredible person. So I wanted to make a mug for him, and I decided I wanted to try porcelain for the first time. So I bought like 50 pounds of porcelain. Porcelain, when you take it out of the bag, you really, really have to work it. Like, you have to knead it. You have to get it to workable. It feels like a brick when you take it out. And the more heat you put into it from your hands, the softer it gets, the more malleable it gets. Kind of like working with like poly clays and things like Sculpey, where you really have to work your hand oils into it to try and like get it to loosen up. And then when you throw, you don't need as much water. It doesn't take as much lubricant to throw with it, and you want to throw it thin. Well, I was so used to throwing with the heavy grog clay that I'm all, trying to push it around, and I didn't like that at all. And my pieces, like as they would dry, I was like, oh, it was not pretty. So when I finally was able to like get the shape that I wanted for Jake's mug, and I finally decided to go ahead with mason stains, you take the pure white clay, then you sandwich the blue and then the red and then the white and then the blue and the red and the white, and then you wedge it all together so you get kind of a spiral in the clay. And then when you throw it on the wheel, you get a marbling effect of the red, white, and blue as you're throwing. And it's not super apparent because as the mason stains kind of mix into the clay, you get a slurry that comes off the side of the clay of just, wet clay that you clean it off and you can really see it. So you're throwing, you don't notice it. You take your potter's knife and you clear off the slurry, and you can see these like red streaks and blue streaks and white, and it's very, very pretty. And then, you fire it normally, and all you need to do is put a clear over top of it to finish it. You don't have to, do much else. But what I decided to do was, not only did I do the clear, but I also did some underglaze with his logo on the side of the mug. So it was super fun, and I made it a travel cup, so it had a lid, and I shipped that down to Texas. Yeah, but it's like the one and only time I ever worked with porcelain. I'll never work with it again.
I was about to say, what have you still got
the other 49.5 pounds of?
Yeah. Or did you just?
I think I have
bin it all straight away.
I have most of the box still over there. Yeah, I'll never work with it again. And some people are like, "You're crazy! It's so nice. We love it." And I'm like, "Nah, it's not for me." It's like baking. I think I want to do it, and then I try doing it again, and I'm like, "Yeah, I should never try that again." Just, I know my limits.
Maybe you need to use the porcelain to make a loaf.
It's like the absolute fail.
Stick it in the bread maker and see what happens.
See what it does.
Probably wouldn't do much of anything.
Like the bread maker.
Give a new definition to like rock cake, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Franco's in the chat. He's probably having a heart attack right now.
Oh God, yeah, Franco. I'll leave the baking to him. Get back in the kitchen.
It's that kind of where's the distribution go? Everything's not fair and even, is it? Some people like Franco get an excess of cooking skills. Somebody else has got an excess of porcelain skills.
Well, that's also like Franco was raised around it, right? Like his grandmother showed him the ins and outs of the kitchen and how to make noodles right, and it's what you're influenced by when you're younger. My brother's ridiculously good at building things and is very mechanically minded because he spent time in the garage with my dad.
Yeah,
it's like where you invest your time again, what you took an interest to, whether you were 9 or 90.
So, well, that kind of sort of makes you think about, or makes me think about, will Carver be potentially someone who in 20, 30 years' time is really far ahead compared to other people because he's had that exposure to clay at such a young age that you perhaps didn't get.
Yeah.
Using handmade wooden tools to work clay.
Yeah. I mean, I have wood tools in here for my clay.
Or
And
clay tools to use on woodwork, which probably wouldn't go too
oh,
well.
yeah, that might not work.
Yeah, don't think that one's.
That might not work. I mean, I bought him his own pottery wheel for his birthday,
Nice.
which he was super excited about. But the one thing with him is he does not like to be dirty. Like he gets
Tricky, yeah.
he doesn't like his hands to be dirty. So he only wants to do it every once in a while now. He used to fight me for time on the wheel. And as like this year he's become a lot more like, well, I don't want to do it because I don't want to have to take a bath, or I don't want my nails to get dirty, or I don't want clay everywhere. And it's like, oh, okay. It's weird because
Sounds like he needs a job in IT,
yeah, right. But he's like, really, he just wants to be in the same room as Ben and I when we're creating. And he wants to be an active participant. So what he's been doing now is he's been wanting to film a lot. So he's been taking, our phones and filming us, and then doing like dictation over it. Like, and now mommy is doing da 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 da. And it's like,
Fantastic.
is that what I'm doing? Okay. But it's super
maybe
cute.
a filmmaker in the future then.
I mean, I feel like the possibilities are endless. The challenge is like the structured school system. Like he's struggling with that. And I think a lot of it is because we're not structured people. Like we don't do the same thing every day. And, he goes to school and they want him to do, this at this time and this at this time and this at this time. And, yeah, that's where it's lacking in our house. And he's having a hard time conforming. Red says his kid does a voiceover when he plays games. What's that?
But he's gonna have the edge on creativity in the future. Yeah, and making things and doing things and being prepared to have a go at things.
Yeah,
I think.
It's hard. It's hard because at that age, like, especially in the States, the protocols for being a successful student they're changing. They're becoming more acceptant of that everybody learns a different way, right? But there's still mandated testing to say like, oh yeah, you're smart or you're dumb. Yeah. It's very frustrating. And when we have a kid that he just is very, very I don't want to say strong-willed because I feel like that's a negative connotation, but he knows what he wants. And if it doesn't align with what the teacher's trying to get him to do, he just shuts down.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to see him struggle in that way because he's so bright. And the definition that we're hearing from, the academic world is like, oh, he's behind, or he's not where he needs to be, and it's because he can't focus, or he refuses to focus. And it's like, okay, what can we do? I don't want to, I'm sorry if this gets into a tangent, but like I don't want to hold him back from his imagination and him being able to work through those things. And I don't want him to be a non-conformist. Like, how do you raise a kid and have them be both mindful of their situation but also creative? Like it feels like this paradigm.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean the education systems, most nations are designed to try and get people to only for certain things. They don't necessarily want kind of free thought, and they're constrained by chronology rather than perhaps ability is not the right word, but maybe ability for at a certain time. So not all kids learn to walk and talk and read at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, some will come to it later.
Yeah.
I've talked about this before, where it's we try and assess kids in the education system, and we try to fit them to a kind of a nice linear curve, and everyone in the class, you've got 30 kids in the class, you expect them all to make the same sort of progress. But some kids will make quick progress and then slow down, others will make slow progress, speed up, others will go a nice linear approach, and that's because we're all different.
I definitely was like the goody two shoes teacher pleaser, like that was what drove me, is that I wanted my teachers to love me, and I would do everything that they wanted in the fastest way that I possibly could. And one of the things that makes me nervous is that Carver is not that at all. He could give a shit about, authority. He doesn't want to, he just looks at his teacher like, yeah, I mean, maybe I'll do that. I don't know. And I'm like, this is raising my anxiety, and I'm not the one saying no. So we had those progress reports. She's like, well, he's just a boy. That's like how boys are at that age, where they aren't trying to please the teacher, and all the girls are trying to please the teachers. And I'm like, man, I was so tunnel vision, I wasn't paying attention to anybody else around me. I was just terrified of like making a mistake. And my kid's like, what's a mistake?
Just a different way of doing stuff, that's all.
Yeah. I feel like he's gonna be like Al's Hack Shack. He's gonna like grow up and just be a crazy maniac of like all of the different things. Just good with people and good with tinkering and just all around, fun.
It's the kind of the kind of person that gets those phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning from a friend going, I'm in this really weird situation, don't judge, but I need your help. And you're the only person I can call who would help or could help.
Yeah. It's fun. Like, that's an adventure in and of itself, being a parent. Like, and it was an adventure I wasn't sure I was willing to get into, because I am a pretty, like, I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And having a kid means like I have to stop and pay attention to what he needs. And so I can't, throw 100 pots in one day. Like, I have to stop and feed him.
See, that's what we did with my daughter was, as soon as we physically could, teach her to do those things to be self-sufficient. That's what we did. So then we can just kind of do stuff, and then occasionally she'll sort of like wander in with food for us when we're busy doing stuff.
Yeah, he did ask me the other day.
To bake.
Yeah, there you go. He did ask me the other day if he could make toast, but our toaster oven is like so high I can't even reach it. So I mean, again, it's another Ben. Can you
kitchen worktop height then?
I want to make avocado toast. Ben, can you put the toast in the toaster? Now we're full circle back to the oven antics and the cooking, and that's why Ben cooks all of our food by calling the pizza place.
There was a question earlier actually about can you cook pizza in a kiln?
It's very hard to control a kiln at low temperatures. So you would basically
cook a pizza really quickly in a kiln.
Well, I mean, a pizza oven is very hot, isn't it? I mean, a pizza oven is operates at very, very high temperatures. Which a proper pizza oven, you cook your pizza in seconds.
Yeah. Let's see. What is it? An uni pizza oven.
But I guess there's the kind of sort of, I don't know. Would you want to open a kiln when it's very hot?
Yes.
Try and
it can
place
get up
the
to
pizza
like
down.
500 degrees super quick. So an uni pizza maker can cook a pizza in 15 minutes.
Oh no, like
It can heat up
proper,
to 900 degrees very quickly.
Yeah,
Fahrenheit.
so the big like proper crazy brick fired pizza ovens are.
Yeah, this is a
900
ceramic
Fahrenheit.
pizza oven.
Yeah, take a bit of time to heat up once they're hot. The pizza will cook in
90 seconds or something. Like
yeah.
Yeah.
Which always amazes me when I see it. Yeah, 'cause, I used to kind of do it in the oven at home when you kind of put it in and 15
25
minutes
minutes
later you take out your pizza and it's like, yeah, needs another 5, so you put it in for 3 and it's then burnt. Yeah.
So there was a fantastic. Well, I say fantastic. There was a talk show that Jeremy Clarkson did years ago. It was just him on his own talk show, and he generally had like a segment of just some ridiculousness, and there'd been a discussion about the kind of the resilience of pizzas, just in their composition, and how you can absolutely burn the crap out of one and it doesn't seem to disintegrate. It just phase changes essentially. So he got it was a foot diameter disc of armor plating steel, and used an oxyacetylene torch to cut through it. It took about 30 seconds or something to cut through this 12-inch diameter, quarter-inch plate steel. So he then got a 12-inch 4-cheese pizza, just a frozen pizza, and put it in the same place, same torch, and ran the torch up and down it for the same 30 seconds, and it just created a charred groove down the center. And he was saying that they'd worked out the maths on it, that for a space shuttle to survive re-entry, they could stack the pizzas 6 layers thick, and it would act as a heat shield to to survive re-entry. So maybe just cranking the kiln up to 1500 degrees or something, just vaporize your pizza in 25 seconds or something.
Oh, I love stuff like that. Did one once with talking about it's not something that's regularly taught, but there's a concept with radioactivity called half thickness. So it's the thickness of a material that reduces the radioactivity being transmitted by half. And got a student to work out how much cheese you would need to protect yourself from a nuclear power station instead of concrete.
That's cheese on the outside, not consuming it.
Yeah, no, on the outside, yeah, because you need a lot of cheese to replace the lead and concrete.
So I've been steadily working on trying to fortify myself with cheese
from the inside.
Yeah, from the inside, just in case I consume any alpha or beta particles.
Cheese. We could do experiments with different types of cheeses.
Yeah,
mozzarella,
just the American cheese. Yeah,
goat cheese.
Well, those plastic cheeses you get, the kind of with the plastic wrapper that you kind of
like the craft singles.
Yeah. It's wrapped in plastic, and there's no difference between the plastic and the cheese other than the colour. Yeah,
you don't know if you've not unwrapped it yet.
John says the plot of his next novel has just been written. Bestseller, absolutely, especially in Wisconsin.
I'm just seeing this post-apocalyptic, nuclear winter kind of thing, and there's just this dude with like a 3-foot thick, suit made of.
It looks like the Michelin Man, but
mozzarella.
It's all provolone.
And then his nemesis comes in covered in buffalo mozzarella.
Yeah, just don't choose the
Council of
Adama.
cheeses.
Yeah. Codename Cheesemonger.
John, if you write this, we want credit.
Yeah,
That's
one of the
hilarious.
acknowledgements. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Oh, the places we go on this show. Yeah.
Well, as John said earlier, it's mostly just tangents.
Yes, that's okay.
I think we spent more time talking about making today than we have for a long time in one go. We spent a lot of time
That's
on the
great.
clay. Yeah,
That's true. I mean,
Clay.
it
Yes.
says something about the quality of the guest.
exactly.
Yes. I can go on for hours and hours. I love clay. I love lamp.
I was going to say. Enjoy the song with the "I love cats, I love every kind of cat." It was out a few years ago. I think that needs to be the Heidi version of "I love
There
clay."
you go. I love clay.
I love every kind of clay apart from porcelain.
Yep. Yeah. It's definitely been fun. And I'm making a business out of it, which is even more exciting. And hopefully in the next year it'll be my full-time gig.
That would be cool. That'd be very cool.
For sure.
What could have been your plan?
It's been a lot of fun because, like I was saying before about mixing the things that I learned prior to this and being able to turn it into a commodity that people want. It just allows me to fund being able to get bigger and bigger pieces of equipment to play with. So it's been a lot of fun. I'm excited. This year has been incredible so far. Like I picked up 4 more coffee shops that I'm making mugs for. I'm working on senior gifts for Carnegie Mellon University, for possibly Chatham University, which is a local college. And this project that I'm doing for my day job, they've given me an opportunity to be able to sell my work in their local goods area of their store. So that's been super exciting. But it's I think it's what everybody's goal is, right? As a maker, is like you find some way of making what you enjoy doing benefit you economically.
Get someone to pay you to do the things you find fun.
Yeah. So I would say
that's a good aim for anyone, whatever you do, whether it's making or anything else.
True. But
something you enjoy.
I think one of the struggles that we have as makers, and getting into the content game, getting into YouTube and things. When we first started Slap Stuff together, YouTube was where you could actually make it, like you could make money. It was like just as we hit our threshold is when the adpocalypse happened, and we went from making a little bit of money to making nothing. It was very surreal. And I talked to a few other people that were like in that same, like we all hit 1,000 subscribers all at the same time. We're all like, yeah, here we go. We're monetized. We're making, a $10 bill. Hooray. And then it was like, now we, don't even bother putting videos on the YouTube unless it's like, more social than it is a business plan. One thing that was interesting, because I was part of a group that was asked to participate with a bunch of students who were in marketing, and they didn't know that I had tried the YouTube thing a while ago, and so they were trying to get me back into it with the pottery. They were like, oh, you could totally like get into YouTube, and you could get into TikTok with your pottery, and you can make a shit ton of money. Like you could really do that. And I'm like, yeah, but by the time I edit all those videos, do you know how many pots I could sell? Like, yeah. I remember right before COVID, I was talking to Sharon Figment Made, and we were just talking about like what our next steps were, because she was trying to go full time as a maker, and we were still, you know, kind of dragging along with slap stuff together. And I was just like, you know, I think I just gotta pursue this product development, like on a small scale. I need to find a local economy that works rather than trying to be global. I need to pare it down to networking locally and building a product that would be successful here, and that people would be excited for. Maybe that product will then, you know, evolve into being something that other people would want to commoditize, but make it personal to them. And she was like, yeah, I should do something like that. In you know, I'm in a very tourist area in New Jersey. Like I could do something like that. Like maybe I could do leather work or something along those lines. I'm like, that's definitely the direction, versus, you know, trying to make videos and maybe, you know, make one that makes us $10. You know, at the end of the day, the amount of time that we were spending cutting a video, from like staging the video, lighting the video, making sure sound was right, videoing it, editing it, putting music over it or narration over it, publishing it, because that was the other thing. And Red can attest to this. Like if your internet wasn't cooperating and you had a 4 gigabyte video that you're trying to post at 4K onto the interwebs, you know, you're sitting there all night trying to get it to post. And then they keep introducing all these new things like, oh, well, now you should have, you know, a watch party where you organize and sit with people. So there's another time suck where you're not actually doing the thing that you really enjoy doing. So we, you know, after a while, it was like, it seemed like this was the better choice, was to find a product, commodify it, make it personal for small companies. And I was fortunate enough that last year there was a new coffee distribution center that went in up the street from me. And a friend of mine, through Ben's cousin, knew that I did pottery and told his boss, hey, our potter decided to open up a coffee shop and doesn't want to throw pottery anymore. We need a potter. My friend throws, let's get her in here. So I met with them. They ordered like 20 mugs, you know, with their logo on it. But then there were a bunch of coffee shops that they distribute to, and they started posting on Instagram, hey, you know, check out these cool ass mugs that we got. You know, they're limited edition 20 count, you know, like once they're gone, they're gone. And their customers started reaching out to me. So one at a time, it was like, oh, I need 30. Oh, I need 30. Oh, you know, I want 50. Then repeat, you know, rinse and repeat. Like, hey, you know, you already have the stamp. You already have the artwork. Can we change up the shape? So that's what I'm doing now is like, I have these repeat customers. They want to share something unique with their customer base. So we change up the shape a little bit and it brings them something new. It's collectible. For their local coffee shop, right? And instead of it saying like the coffee shop's name or the coffee shop's logo alone, it has something that's specific to the region, right? So we were doing like, I don't know if you guys saw the post a while ago that was like my maker mark. Pittsburgh is the city of bridges. Like we have so many bridges here, and there's an iconic bridge in almost every one of these municipalities. So then, you know, the latest one is Freeport, is where this one coffee shop is. And they have this super long extension bridge that they wanted put on the front of their mugs. So it just says Freeport with the bridge, and then it has 1833 for the year that this town was established. Coffee shop's name is 1833 Coffee. So nice. You know, they've not only been able to incorporate their brands, but then they've also been able to incorporate an image that's iconic with the town name. So that in and of itself makes people want it more. But I know, just historically speaking, everybody likes to have a good solid mug. right? So those have been flying off the shelves. I'm doing the first batch of the bridge ones now. I have 30 of them prepped. There's another coffee shop up the street from there. It's in a little town called Saxonburg, and they are known for making the steel rope or cable that is used in the Brooklyn Bridge. So
cool.
It's like what they're known for. So I had designed a stamp for the front of the medallions for them that had the Brooklyn Bridge, and then it said Saxonburg, PA, home of the cable or whatever. And they were like, we really like it, but it's kind of played out because everybody has that on their T-shirts. We want it to say Saxonburg, but can you just put our little cottage coffee shop on the front? So I went into Illustrator. I took a photo of the building straight on, and then I went into Illustrator and I illustrated it. And it turned out super cool. Duncan helped me with my 3D prints because I did buy a resin printer to get more detail out of it.
Resolution and stuff, yeah.
And it turned out so cool. I think I have one, yeah. It turned out really rad. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if there's enough light. Maybe. I don't have my phone
parts
here.
of it.
Let's see.
Oh, sort of, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty.
Yes,
Yeah.
for those listening on audio later in the week, come and check out the video on YouTube to see that.
Yeah, you can also see it on my Instagram.
Yeah, so it's on Instagram.
But it's it's been a lot of fun. And then John's talking about I did social distancing stamps a couple of years ago.
That's so cool.
Yeah, in 2020 when the COVID experience first started, I did there was this big thing. My dad's obsessed with Sasquatch or Bigfoot, and he was like, you need to have a whole line of mugs. It's Bigfoot. I'm like, oh, okay. So then I was playing around with doing a meme a year, just on the front of mugs, and he was like, oh, you need to put Bigfoot on there. He's like the OG social distancer. I'm like, oh, okay. So then, I came up with a stamp and got Dad's approval, put it on the front, and then I made tankards, and then I made flagons, is what John coined them as, flagons, which are, I don't know, how much does it hold, John? It's like, he put an entire bottle of vodka or something in it the other night. It's just this giant thing. And it's perfect for a big dude like him, right? Like, he's just this massive guy, and like it looks like a normal size mug when he holds it.
Well, because that's what I was going to say. Is did you base the Bigfoot stamp? Did you base that on John or on like?
Yes, in fact, I did. Yeah, I wanted it to have his cool tattoos, but he said it fit an entire bottle of wine. Yeah.
That is why we love you, John.
Yes. And he makes his bone broth and puts it in his bear pitcher that I made him. That poor man, he ordered a pitcher from me that had bears all over it, and I sent it up. I thought I packaged it really well, but I guess the delivery driver decided to run it over with his truck before he delivered it. So I think there was another item in there, maybe a mug or something, and it survived, but the pitcher was just toast. But it took me forever to recreate the pitcher. I rethrew that thing like 6 times, and it was just like, yep, this isn't happening. You're not going to get this is going to be work for you. But he was patient, and he waited for like 4 months before he got his new pitcher in the mail. And the way I packaged it up, like, I made it bomb proof. I was like, hell no, this thing is not gonna break now. Like,
did it do the same? I mean, was it, when you sent it in the mail, did it go directly to John? Because we've discovered that there's a weird kind of like delivery phenomenon with John, where things
No, I
take
think
a meandering journey around.
Yeah, I
other
think it
parts
went
of the
up and
world.
around. You know, like it didn't go as the crow flies. It went like state, 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 Canada, state, home.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it's very strange. Anytime that I ship anything up there to him or to Tony Rouleau, if I look at the tracking, it's always super strange. And I always get nervous about shipping things up north. But I don't know, just like
Going up north,
vortex.
going via Mexico.
It's a shipping vortex. It's very strange. I have a package that I have a label for to send to Red, and I am so nervous to send it because I sent something to Kiln a couple months ago, or like I guess a year ago, and it took 6 months for it to come back to me. It went to Hamburg, sat in Hamburg for a while. They never contacted him to say that he had a package or he needed to pay customs or anything like that. Even I marked it as a gift and everything. Comes back to me. It's in pristine condition, completely fine. I can't ship something within the United States to John without it getting run over, but I can send something on a boat all the way to Germany. And it comes back to me and then goes back to Germany, and it's completely fine. It did eventually make it to him. And I have a package for Rasmus too that I'm like terrified to send. Like, I was like, should I just fly myself?
Well, I mean, those two are both going to be in the UK, obviously, in like 6 weeks' time. So maybe you should just fly over with that stuff, and then you just hand it to them in person.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah.
And then it's their responsibility to get it back home.
I'll tell you what, last Maker Central, I flew to London with an entire suitcase full of mugs because I did all of the maker mugs for the boys. I did one for Jess Ueda. I did one for Caro. So like I had so many mugs. I think it was like most of my luggage was pottery.
It's like filled with socks and things.
Yep. Yeah, you should wrap it in your t-shirts. But I put it in my carry-on because I thought, oh, it'll stay with me. It'll stay with me. I can take care of it. Nobody will touch it but me. And they overbooked the flight. So they were like, all carry-ons that are like this size have to be checked. I was devastated because I'm just thinking, oh my God, like all of this work.
Given the way they throw
all of this work. And I was watching out the plane window like, oh, okay. Oh, okay.
There it is in the cage.
Please don't throw that on top. Oh God.
There it is out in the air. It bounced twice.
Yeah, the only mug that broke was my Maker Central mug. And that was like a last minute throw it in the carry-on, and it just wasn't prepared for that journey. But everything else was fine. It just was hilarious. But I shipped myself with my pottery that day, and it probably was cheaper.
It probably would have been, yeah. I mean, obviously more fun because you get to see it in person when you hand the thing to the person.
Yeah, that was definitely it was a moment for sure. Being able to give everybody their pieces and get it on video, and it was a lot of fun. It was definitely an experience.
Maker Central is, yeah. I think a lot of events, I don't think it actually matters too much what the event is. If you're going to something where there's people that you can get on with. Yeah, whether it's a concert or whether it's a festival of some sort. But yeah, I mean, there aren't huge numbers of events for makers, particularly diverse range of makers. I think, yeah, there's
that's
meetups for specific things. If you actually want to try different things, there aren't that many around. But when you go to an event where there are like-minded people, whether you're cosplaying at a Comic-Con or whatever, I think they are tremendous fun. Certainly for anyone who's on the fence as to whether they want to go to Maker Central or not, if you can, go. It is enjoyable. Everyone's so friendly. You can. I mean, I can still remember last time. Well, the only time I've been was the last one.
Yeah.
And you can literally be stood looking at something that's happening on an event, and you turn to your side, and there's some super famous YouTube star stood next to you, and you kind of go, "That's really cool, isn't it?" And they go, "Yeah, it is, isn't it?" And then you can kind of you have a conversation about it, just because there's something that you're both watching and enjoying, and everyone's super friendly and great events. If you can go.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, it was the first time I'd ever traveled overseas, and I told my husband, I was like, "Hey, I have my passport. I'm going. You don't have your passport. You're not going to get it. I'm not waiting for you to get it. I'm just going to go. I need to do this for myself. And I want to go and experience it. One of my best friends lived in London. She was originally from South Carolina. I worked with her for years. And she was like, "Hey, I'll put you up, come hang out." And then it was like, all right, it was a no-brainer. I have somewhere to stay, and then I'll go down to Maker Central, and then, I'll figure it out. I'll figure out what I'm going to do. And it was definitely one of those trips of a lifetime where it's like, I definitely don't think I could repeat it the way that it was. It was pretty intense, crazy week and a half. My son was super tiny at the time, and so it was a bit hard being away from him. But the most interesting part, I think, was I got on the speed train from London down to Birmingham, and I'd never been on a train before, other than electric trolley in my city. And it was so interesting. That experience alone probably would have been enough. But then I navigated my way to the facility, the hotel and the facility where they were holding the Maker Central that year. And I remember the feeling of just anticipation and knowing that I was late. I was late, and people were probably concerned that I was late, and concerned because I was traveling by myself. But I knew what was going to happen when I walked in that room, and Ellen saw me and Jess, because I'd seen all of them before. It wasn't the first time I met them. It was just a reunion. So all of that anxiety of oh God, I've never seen these people in person before. Ellen stayed at my house, and I'd hung out with Jess a couple of times and Brett a couple of times. So it wasn't I didn't have all of that scariness of it. But I had the travel anxiety, and I had what's going to happen when I walk in this room? I'm going to be smothered is what's going to happen. I'm going to be smothered in kisses and hugs, and I'm not going to be able to handle it. I might cry. And that's exactly what happened. Ellen was one of the first people to see me, and she's super excited, oh, you're finally here! Hooray, we were worried. What happened? And just and Patty and and the boys were all over at the sewing area where Patty was, so it was super easy to see everybody. Red was teaching how to do leather work in that same space, so it was the core group of people that I had spent time with either online or bonded with in person. They were there. And then I also knew that Mac and Tony were there, and I couldn't wait to see Mackenzie, because she's just a fantastic person, and I love her to death, and Tony's pretty good too, but so it's just all of this energy of the excitement of seeing them, and I didn't even look at any of the booths. I can't
Yeah.
even like. I maybe I went to Colin Firth's booth, or Colin for what is this? Colin
First.
Firth's booth, because he had the giant.
The
What was it?
Hulkbuster armor. And
Yeah, yeah, he had the Hulkbuster armor there. He also had something else, something yellow. What was it?
That's because he had his hover bike.
Yeah.
And there was some other things.
Caro was running around with Laura on the bike, on the electric bike, and then I got over to the blacksmithing area, and James from Malt and Make was there, and he's like, "You fancy a beer?" I'm like, "What? Yeah, sure." And he's like, "Come around here." I'm like, what is this place? I just remember just being so overwhelmed by like all of the just randomness of it. And then Soph found me, and she gave me her partner ticket for the after event for all the makers that were invited. Yeah. Yeah. So then it was like drinking and
pizza and beer.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun after that.
Because I remember bumping into you at some point as well. I can't remember what the hell it was that we were looking at, but it was, we were stood near something. I was like, Heidi! You're like, I was like, hug?
Yeah, I think we were in that event, right? And we were sharing a pizza.
No, I think I'm sure it was actually in the Maker Central bit first.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Disifying.
But I can't remember what the hell we were looking at, but yeah.
It's a long time ago now.
Yeah.
Nearly 3 years.
Yeah. Such good photos, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Rasmus and I were like sharing lenses back and forth and cameras. We were like just kept swapping back and forth. And then he was like helping with the teaching the blacksmith stuff, and I was like, this guy, man, he's got so much energy. Who's this dude? And then you find out he's like 15, and you're like, that's why he has all this energy.
Yeah. That, and they have to keep swapping the batteries out, changing the power cell over.
He's the Energizer Bunny.
Yeah.
It was good times.
It certainly was. Certainly was.
Definitely. I'm hoping this year's going to be at least decent.
Yeah, how is that working? Because I heard that like everybody's going to be split up at different hotels. Is there going to be like one common place that everybody's meeting up at? I suspect it's
probably going to be a similar sort of thing of everyone turning up to probably the Hilton again, just because it's got the facilities all spread out. But yeah, there's a lot of us are in the kind of the cheaper hotels this time because I'm sure the prices have gone through the roof.
Yeah, I remember it being astronomical to stay there, even 3 years ago. So I think it was like Brett had stayed somewhere. It was a couple of miles away.
Yeah, there were a few people who did kind of Airbnb rather than kind of sort of staying in a hotel. There were a few people who were camping and sort of driving in.
A Red staying at the Moxie.
Well, that might be the bar. I think it's one of those. We've got a WhatsApp group going for kind of makers who are there and stuff. So I think we'll probably try and coordinate something. Someone will hear some rumor that everyone's congregating in one particular place, so we'll sort of dogpile it. Yeah,
we did. I did notice that like it kind of got segregated a bit in the hotel. Yeah, there were different, like depending on your level of notoriety, right? It was very interesting. Like Jimmy and Samurai Carpenter and that whole crew were off in that side. And like I was just mingling around everybody, just like I did in high school. I didn't like assert myself into any specific clique. I was just like, hey, oh, hi, because I'm a friggin' extrovert. But I remember like my legs were tired. I was bouncing around. The best part though was like being able to hang out with Tanda.
Yeah,
Like getting
awesome.
some really solid time with Tanda was probably a highlight. And then the next day riding with Jamie and Berkey and Jake down to the Stonehenge was a trip and a half. Before I got in the car, I had no idea that Jake had only driven in England for a day, or I may not have been so willing a participant in my own kidnapping. He did pretty well until we got in the countryside, and then it was a little bit iffy.
And all the roads become the width of the car.
Yeah, and it's not like we were in a wide vehicle or anything. But Berkey kept it really entertaining, and it was super fun.
I've got a fantastic memory of me and Berkey in the Hilton Bar, because sort of on the run up to it, he was saying he was really excited and stuff like that. And for my 30th, my best friend decided to, because I'd got old, because I'm 2 years older than her. And when I'd hit 30, she bought me some what's called tenner for men, which are just kind of men's sanitary towels for incontinence, basically. So I had this sat on a shelf, and then because Berkey had said he was really excited, I thought, well, perfect. He's saying he's going to wet himself, so I'm going to take them with him. And I sort of threatened it, and I think he'd obviously just expected me to be just joking, and then I'd sort of walk into the Hilton Bar with them, and sort of like walking up to him, and him and Tony were over there, and sort of see me walking towards them, and they're like, oh hey, sort of stuff, ready to give me a hug, and I sort of like brandish this box of these sort of adult diapers for and he just doubled over, just borderline crying with laughter.
It was like the same year that astronaut, she wore those diapers and drove across the country to like do something nefarious. It was like that during that same period of time. Do you remember that? So I don't know if she had intended on murder or what, but she like wore adult diapers so that she wouldn't have to stop. So she would have an alibi to say like she drove all that. There's no way she could have driven all that way. But
you'll have to find that out. You'll have to do some research into that.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, but she was out of her mind. But I remember that being a running joke in the car too, that he had access to those if we needed them.
Yeah, that was because of me then.
I didn't realize it came from you though.
He did give a few away, I think.
I did see a couple stuck to people's heads at one point.
Oh gosh, what a night! By the end of we did play that was it Heads Up game where there was like a group of us. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning. We were like playing Maker's Heads Up. Like you put the card on your head and it says somebody's name and you have to guess who they're talking about. Yeah. I don't think I've ever drank as much cider as I did when I was in England. It was crazy.
I mean, it's totally the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Proper cider too.
Yeah, it was good cider. It was good cider. Except I was drinking some Strongbow and I was like, oh, this stuff's pretty good. And Soph was like, it's like English Budweiser.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like Budweiser.
Yeah, she's like, here, drink this. And I don't remember what it was, but it was even
Probably
better.
Thatcher's Gold or something.
Yeah, but she definitely was making fun of me for saying that was good cider. Oh, you stinking American.
I mean, I was going to say, compared to what you're used to.
Yeah, relative, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely was fun. I think my next trip is probably going to be. I'm going to try and get to Germany next.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, try and see as many places as I can.
There's a ranch and a garden to visit.
Yes.
As two definite.
Yeah, pretty keen on both of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. So they're not in the same city, really. Just save some travelling.
Here's the thing. When y'all talk about like going 2, 3, 5 hours, you're like, oh God, you know, that's like a whole country. And for me, that's across the state. If I drive 5 hours, I'm still in the same damn state.
Yeah, but by the same token, you know, when you guys talk about something that's absolutely ancient, that's like last week for the rest of us.
Yes, very true. Very true.
It's like, oh my God, this thing was so old. It was built in 1984.
1984. Oh.
Well, you know, it's like, oh yeah, I've got this really old house. You know, it was built in the 70s. Oh, right, what like 1870s, 1770s? Yeah. No, 1970s.
I mean, my house was built in 1945.
Well, there you go.
I did when I was in London.
The village I live in has got houses that are older than your country.
I mean, that's about what I was going to say. When I was in London and I was standing in Trafalgar Square, I was reduced to tears. I was just like, I'm standing in a spot that has been here for generations prior to my generations, prior to those generations. Like, it blew my mind. And then the idea that like I was staying in an apartment of a building that had the facade of marble that had also been there for so long. Yeah. It was definitely one of those experiences that I just will always live with. Just immediately go back to that as soon as I think about it. Like even walking, like the palace was, whatever, it's a palace, but like the art museum, like going into the quad there and just looking around, just absolutely blew my mind. The one thing that I wish that I would have taken time to see was going to like one of the proper castles and in the countryside and seeing an actual castle. But that's I'll save that for Scotland.
Good trip. Or Wales. Wales. Really amazing castles as well. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
go to the south. Wales has got by land area. Wales has got the highest density of castles anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
North Wales especially has got some absolutely gorgeous ones.
Well, then I'll have to come have some Welsh cakes. I heard Andy makes some good ones.
You probably could have tried them, makers, but I think me and Steve wiped him out before he got a chance to see anyone else.
Yeah, that was one of the things. Like showing up late meant that I couldn't.
Oh no!
I couldn't try the Welsh cakes. Oh, so John did some research. Lisa Novak, the astronaut, drove 14 miles to confront her ex-boyfriend's new lady. She wore adult diapers for the entire trip, and that was in 2007.
I mean, 14 hours of solid driving is ridiculous.
She's an astronaut.
True.
There's a lot of ridiculous things they put themselves through.
And a lot of driving to get to most places.
Yeah.
And she probably only went through 3 states.
Well, you're talking about like the whole age thing before. I was talking to my dad earlier this evening, and he was talking about, because he's a musician, and he was talking about he was playing in a pub the other day that dates from 1320.
1320.
Yeah,
that's old. That's probably old.
Yeah, it's one of the oldest pubs in the UK.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
I remember sitting on the giant bluff of a hill with Dan, and he was giving me all the history of his area and like what that hill was, and looking across the countryside, and he's like, warriors would sit up here and they would watch to see invading armies come in across the landscape, and they'd warn with torch towers, and just that history, that recorded history, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure some really incredible things happened here, predating the Euro invasion, but wasn't recorded, or not in a way that we ever took the time to understand. So we
wiped out.
Yeah.
There's a possibility.
Yeah. I was watching. I'm really obsessed with those YouTube videos of divers going and finding treasures in the rivers. Watch those. They're like, "Oh, I found a car from 1975." They come up and they're like, "Let's try and get this sucker out of the water." And then sometimes they find like arrowheads and things, but mostly they just find guns, because that's what we're known for.
Pretty much.
They find Trans Ams and guns.
It's the biggest exports. And to be fair, it's only because the plastic cheese is all dissolved.
At a gun in a river, you kind of think, why is this gun in a river? Yeah.
It has that being thrown out of a car window and in passing.
Yeah. But just that's my secret habit, is watching those underwater diving videos. Oh, look what he found! The magnet fishing. Have you ever watched those? Where people take a giant magnet.
I was just about to say, Rich Beard X16 was in the chat earlier. I don't know if he's still there. And I know he's done a couple of videos with kind of sort of magnet fishing.
Yeah.
And I think I've kind of thought about it a couple of times. I think with my luck with fishing, I'd probably end up losing the magnet. Yeah, kind of string would come off.
Then you just got to fish with a normal hook, haven't you? Something that's ferric. First. Would that be magnet fishing, or magnet fishing to try and fish the magnet back out?
Oh.
Yes, when you put the fish on the end of your magnet.
Don't hit it the wrong direction and propel it further away from you.
You get the poles right.
Why didn't I get it?
Get after it.
It's like the most redneck thing I've ever seen. Like going off the side of the bridge, going, "Oh, I think I got something." Come up and it's like this big bracket from the bridge or something.
There's a fantastic fishing scene in Futurama, which I need to get Andy to watch at some point anyway. But they go fishing off the spaceship. So they're just kind of like parked above the water, and Leela like finally gets a catch and like lifts this old boot out, and she's like, "Oh man, don't get any luck." And then like ages later, she's like, "Oh my god, I've got something that's got to be it's 20 times heavier than what I got last time." Lift it up. It's a crate. It says boots 10 pair.
Oh, so fun.
Yeah, I think I never did much fishing as a kid.
No?
I kind of, at one point I kind of bought rods and reels and floats and stuff. I got given some bits and bobs and bought a few extra things, and I was going to really get into it. It's the gear acquisition syndrome. Yeah, it's kind of hyperfixation on it for a while. It was like, I think the number of hooks I lost, kind of casting and getting them caught in weeds and things.
I suppose that's where like VR would be really useful. Some kind of VR environment where you can, kind of go through all the motions of learning a new hobby and buying all the kit and everything else, and then get to that point where you decide you don't like it anymore, and you can just kind of select all and delete all the kit and move on to the next hobby. That's a VR business idea right there.
There you go. Carver was watching some YouTube video of this guy with the VR mask on and the things, and he was in this garage like repairing vehicles. That was the whatever you call it, the instance that he was doing. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, how is this enjoyable for you to watch? He's just like taking wheels off and putting new wheels on, and opening the trunk, changing the light bulb, and then telling the vehicle to go and getting the receipt and throwing it at the vehicle and getting paid. And I'm like, first of all, that looks boring to play it.
It looks like work.
And you're sitting here watching that guy do that. Like, what is so fun about this action? But I'm sure that that's probably how my mom felt when we were kids and we were fishing on the boat and she was sunbathing. Like, my dad had this big, it was a speedboat that he converted into a bass boat. Like, he just cut the fiberglass. It was like a big bass boat, didn't have a windshield and steering wheel anymore. So she would lay up in the front of it, and we would fish for hours and hours and hours. And I can just imagine how boring that was for her, because she had no interest in fishing. She just lay there, read a book, glossed over, like, oh, how long is this going to be? And we'd be out there until like midnight. It was great.
But it was an opportunity for a rest.
I guess.
Yeah, as the parent, it's like, okay, you're fishing, right? I can just sit down and relax.
Yeah.
And I'm not at home, so I don't have to do any cleaning or cooking or.
Yep. Yeah, we called our boat the Odie. My dad let me paint Odie on the side. Do you know who Odie is?
In Garfield and Odie.
Garfield. Mm-hmm.
Ah, of course.
The yellow dog.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Nice.
Again, dating myself with references.
I was going to say I got a pop culture reference before Jamie there.
Well, that's dating me slightly, isn't it? Because it's sort of passing me by.
Yeah.
It's on the cusp.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Loosely familiar. Once you take Garfield, it came sort of flooding back. But
yeah,
it was less popular by the time I arrived.
But it did have a resurgence in the early 2000s when they tried to bring it back, like more like 3D animation.
I was going to say, did they kind of redo the animation? Because I got really kind of frustrated with things like how some of the British cartoons got redrawn.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean,
Postman Pat,
like,
Fireman Sam,
Postman
and all
Pat,
those stuff.
yeah, exactly. And it's like just not the same.
Yeah.
And Bob the Builder. Yeah, when they redid Bob the Builder, that was criminal.
Robert the Construction Worker.
Yeah, Bill Murray played the voice of Garfield in the Garfield movie in 2004. That's around when you were born, right, Jamie?
No, I'm not Rasmus age.
A kid. I was graduating college at that time.
Oh, I wish. Yeah.
What would I have been doing?
I
think I'd have been halfway through college at that point.
Yeah. I just turned 40 this year.
I'm not far behind you.
Isn't it weird?
Andy's staying very quiet.
He said,
Yeah,
been there, done that.
Yeah, done the 40s.
Did all of them?
Did them all. Yeah. Yeah, working my way through the 50s now.
No, they're just 40 teens.
The 40 teens.
Well, but that would be the French counting way, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. 420, 11,
Rasmus is getting offended. He's like, I'm 16, guys.
We discovered recently that it was because it was Rasmus's birthday yesterday and then me today. So
happy birthday, Ras.
Closer than
I think I forgot
he
to
would
say
like.
happy birthday to him yesterday. Happy birthday, Rasmus.
Oh, it's
yesterday.
Just insults. That's what he needs.
No, I'm not. When we get to our attention grabbers, he's going to get a mention.
Heidi, you look so young and vital. 40 doesn't mean death.
My colleague up there is proof of that.
It's funny at work. I'm the oldest one. Like a lot of the, like, during my day job, a lot of the employees are in their 20s still, and they come to me for advice because I'm like the aged one. And I'm like, oh shit, I have been
when everything was in black and white.
I have been in this industry longer than I am older than you. It's very, very humbling, to say the least.
I think there's only in my work. I think there's only one person younger than me.
Yeah.
I'll be two.
I had the situation in my last but one school of
surely there were a lot of people younger than you in there.
Having a well, yes, there are actually. Yeah, there were. But I had the situation of one of my ex-students at that school becoming a teacher at that school. That was a little bit kind of
wow.
And he's now a teacher of my eldest. It's all kind of like very meta.
Yeah. Well, I was up at my dad's yesterday, and we were talking about the basketball coach at my old high school was also the basketball coach when my dad was in school. So he's seen like all these generations, and now my nephew is in basketball. So he's seen 4 generations of Shirados. In that's my maiden name. He's seen 4 generations of Shirados in basketball. It's like, yeah, nuts. That's
some dedication to your workplace.
He retired. Like the reason that it came up was because he was retiring as the overall sports administrator at the school district, and he was just going to stay with being the basketball coach. And so then we were talking about, like, there's so much history in that school district, like specifically, like there's an entire generation of teachers that has stayed on and taught generation after generation after generation. And it's got to be surreal for them to know that, like, they are teaching someone's grandkid that they taught the grandfather in school. Like, what? And it's not like my brother was super young when he had kids. He was in his mid to late 20s when he had kids. So it's just another testament to, like, this guy's longevity for his career. But it's bonkers. We were talking about how many teachers are still there just retiring that we had in school. And then my dad was like, yeah, I had him in school too. Look how old I look. How you can figure out how old he is. Have I mentioned my dad's a character?
we might have been able to read that from the subtext. Yeah.
So John just said, I had to explain rotary phones to someone at work. At a certain point, I felt like I was doing a historical reenactment. Jamie, did they have those when you were a kid?
Yeah. They did.
I remember it being such an upgrade when we had the wireless phone in the house. The cordless phone, you know, and like you could call into the box that was in the living room,
intercom.
in the bedroom, and be like, Mom, I want a drink. Can you give me a drink, Mom? It's like, you know, I was like a rich kid now. I didn't know, Mom.
Like 2 minutes later, your bedroom door swings open and a drink gets thrown at you.
she just yell upstairs, just come down and get it yourself. Aw. Turn on my Sarah McLachlan really high again. Be a maybe angsty teenager. Play my Lilith Bear as loud as I could. Indigo Girls. I was something. Every time I complain about my kid, my dad's like, "It's your turn."
But that's what grandparents do as well, don't they? They get the kid, get your kids, borrow them for a while, give you a rest, hype them up, and then send them back.
Yeah, give them all the sugars.
Mm-hmm.
And a drum kit and a trumpet.
Oh, kazoo.
Pouring
That's what we
caffeine
came
down the
home
neck. Yeah.
with. That's what we came home with, a kazoo. I took the wax paper out of that shit. It ain't kazooing no more. So it's broken.
Oh, the batteries are finished.
I don't know. You're just spinning it.
Oh,
too.
we had a few toys like that when I was really young. They were kind of battery activated. They had a drum, and depending on where you hit it, it made different sounds, just like a single drum. Yeah, batteries kept going in really quickly. Don't know why.
Yeah.
You didn't turn it off, did you?
We've had
They
similar
drained,
problems.
and we're all out.
When Carver was like 2, he had this Elmo phone, and it was a box of crayons that had numbers on it and colors, and you would press it, and it would be, "That crown is red," and then it would sing a song. It was like it was this really obnoxious song about crayons, and I remember it was just so loud. It was one of those toys that it did not need to be that loud. I have no idea why they had it amplified that much. And he was like 2, and he would play this thing non-stop. So finally, I didn't take the batteries out. I turned them the opposite way, so it still had the weight that it had the batteries in it. And I'm sorry, honey, something's wrong with it. It won't play no more. Look, the batteries are in it. It's still not playing. I'm evil. I've realized. Like,
I think it's called being a parent.
Yes. How mean am I? But it was just so obnoxious.
But have you kept it in the loft or somewhere?
Yes.
So that when he has kids, you can go, "Here's one of your dad's
Try
toys."
this.
Yes.
And look, make sure the batteries are this way round.
Yes. I have it. It's in his Superman wardrobe up in the top. But
Nice.
that thing was so obnoxious. Ugh. Ugh. And then somebody gave him a dino. It was like, "Rah! Rah!" That might have
Fill the speaker up with glue or something.
that might have got a hammer.
There's a comedian in the UK called Dave Gorman who I've spoken about on here before, but he's renowned for doing elaborate pranks for the sake of winding his wife up. And they had a WhatsApp group with a few local parents who would have kind of play dates with the kids, and they all kind of had they were collecting these little toy cars, but it would be there'd be like an ambulance or a fire truck or a police car or whatever kind of different thing, but they were all almost identical in kind of size and shape. So they all had a button on and would make the noise for the relevant vehicle. So what he did was to find, because it might have like a white body and then like yellow wheels, but then something else might have a red body and yellow wheels. So what he did was found the ones that matched between them all, and then whenever he had one of those kids sort of round for a play date at his house, he would just take one of those toys away and then swap the base round and then put the toy back. So then in the WhatsApp group, it was just starting to get more and more weird, because it would take a few days for the parents to realise, and then they'd be like, has anyone had something weird happen with where like one of the toys has started being something different? So like what he'd been then doing was searching online for other versions from around the globe that were in different languages and stuff.
Oh,
so
no.
They were like, yeah, my kid's police car is now turned into a French ambulance. Has anyone else had this happen? So then they were like looking, they were like, oh, I found this Google post on this forum that someone's done this, and it just turned into this like absolute bedlam over the course of months of him swapping these just for different bases for things that matched. And then his wife finally sussed what was going on and kind of called him out on it. But it is so
open his wardrobe
convoluted.
This year, 15 sets of different.
It was, yeah. It's just sort of like while the kids are playing with another toy, he's just like frantically trying to pull screws out and swap the base of this car or try to swap the wheels around to make it sort of match. So it didn't look any different, but then would suddenly announce itself in another language as a different vehicle.
Oh man, that's hilarious. That's a lot of time and effort.
Yeah.
For a prank.
Especially for a prank, yeah.
To be fair, the same guy kind of came to sort of fame, or infamy rather, with a series called Are You Dave Gorman? Where his flatmates at the time, they were in the pub and they'd found someone else called Dave Gorman, or someone had mentioned knowing someone else called Dave Gorman. So his flatmate bet him that he couldn't find basically all of the people called Dave Gorman. So he said, well, there's got to be quite a lot out there. It can't be that much of an uncommon name. So he said, well, what, go and find them then. So, well, what's a lot? So he had a pack of cards and just went, that many. So he then basically went all around the world and tried to find 52 plus the Jokers people with his name. And then he ended up turning it into a TV show to basically pay off the credit card bill from having flown around the world and driven all over the UK. And
that's some dedication, man.
Oh yeah, he's done a few things like that. That's what he's known for. He's like super elaborate, super ridiculous, over the top. No one in their right mind would do it.
And he's still married.
Yeah. Yeah, somehow.
Yeah, did the travel around the world start after the kids' toys prank came?
No, that was the popularity. Is he was known for the traveling around the world doing all these ridiculous things, and then someone decided they wanted to marry him and procreate. Yeah.
Ian said, "I've read that people actually changed their name to Dave Gorman so he could find enough Daves."
They did. He got 2 or 3 women to change their names as well to Dave Gorman by, legally change their names.
He does. Well, fellas, I have lots more pottery to do. It's 8 p.m. here. I'm sure it's late for you.
So clearly that's the sort of thing that's been grabbing your attention lately. Pottery.
Yep. In it.
Jamie, what's been grabbing your attention this week?
Nothing spectacular. Bits and bobs
Apart
of
from your
tidying
birthday.
and sorting, and yeah, I had a birthday today. Yeah.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Jamie. Happy birthday to you.
Woo!
Thank you very much. But yeah, I nothing spectacular. Just stuff. It's been good.
Good thing to do.
How about you, Andy?
Well, inspired by our conversation with Morley last week, talking about kind of sort of creative space and tidying, I tidied my desk today, so I can actually get to all the books there. And in fact, there, if Rasmus is still there, that square there is a piece of art that Rasmus sent me a few years ago, which is now out of bubble wrap and on display.
Yay!
Which I think is rather cool. So
Nicely
yes, so lots of tidying.
Good.
So
Good.
Heidi, where can people find you? Where's the best place for people to find your work?
Well, most of my work is on Whitehall Pottery's Instagram at Whitehall_pottery. You'll see daily updates mostly of what's going on in my studio. I also have a YouTube channel for Whitehall Pottery and a YouTube channel for Slap Stuff Together that my husband and I share. Ben and I have an Instagram called Slap Stuff Together as well. So you can find us there. And I have a website if you are interested in purchasing pottery. Sorry, I'm not shipping overseas at the moment. little gun shy with that. So that is www.whitehallpottery.com, and you can email me at heidi@whitehallpottery.com if you have questions or you have ideas or if you want commissions.
That's cool. Well, thank you for taking
Thank you very much for
time
joining
out of
us.
your afternoon, evening to have a chat with us.
Oh, my
and
pleasure,
It's
guys.
been great. We
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
It's very fun.
Next week we have Mr. Maltmake himself.
We do.
James.
So that's a good chat. He was on UK Maker Podcast last week. That was a good listen. If anyone wants to kind of go and
I need to do that.
get a heads up. Yes, it was good. It was a good chat. It was just him and James, another James, just chatting together because the other two guests were a bit poorly.
James squared.
Yeah,
I was going to say that.
Oh, we're so cute.
on
Nerdy
that
kids
note,
together.
we'll say goodbye to the audience and
Indeed.
we'll see them all next week. So bye, folks.
Cheers.